You ready?
Oh, yeah? Are we?
How can you not hear him? I have my headphones.
I can't hear anything. I have hearing problems.
Clearly.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Berdosovich, George Stoya here from the Soonerscoop.com studios. Make sure you're subscribed and liked, and it's time for the second half of the season. Welcome in, George. How are we?
I am here. I am excited.
Well, God bless. I'm glad that you made it.
No, it's exciting. Ready to get back to some football. I enjoyed the week off. I'm sure you did too. I know we both did Saturday night. Had a good time.
I was told I saw you
in the BLC. Yep, we did. We ran into each other. But I'm excited to get back to some football. Big 6 games ahead for Oklahoma and a lot of expectations.
Certainly. Oklahoma coming out of the bye week 6-0, obviously coming off of the win over Texas, and Central Florida coming to town. 11 a.m. kickoff, something that I think Oklahoma fans have become just quite used to here as we move forward. It's going to be Oklahoma's, I guess, 5th overall 11 a.m. kickoff, and then a 6th coming straight ahead with the TCU game and then Lawrence in the game against Kansas. So first things first, you got to get through Central Florida and Gus Malzahn and the Knights. I've been calling them the Golden Knights. I have been made aware by plenty of people that probably attended the commuter school that is Central Florida that they are just the Knights. So a little bit of shot at Central Florida, a little bit of shot at the nickname. Oh, well, it is what it is. Oklahoma, 19-point favorite. And, George, I think the biggest thing for Oklahoma as they begin this backstretch of these final 6 games is going to be handling not only the success that comes with being a top 5-6 team in the country, but, I think the heightened expectations and a lot of the stuff that we talked about post-Texas when you're talking about a program that everything's kind of accelerated now with the win over Texas.
Think about the national media that we saw during the bye week. You saw Dylan Gabriel, Danny Stutzman, leaders on this football team, Brent Venables, going on national shows. You're ranked, number 6 in the country right now in the AP poll. I think that the expectations are so much higher. And what's interesting, Eddie, is this team, most of these guys haven't dealt with this type of success, right? You're talking about a group that last year obviously went through the battles of a really tough season. Now all of a sudden, everyone's patting you on the back. Everyone's talking about, hey, this Oklahoma team, they could win the Big 12. They could play for a college football playoff. They could play for a national title, Eddie. Those are the implications. You talk about Dylan Gabriel and the Heisman status, him being in that race. He's squarely in it, one of the favorites. So
it's incredible.
It's crazy because it was coming into the year, we weren't even talking about some of that stuff.
After the SMU game, people wanted him benched.
Yeah, and it goes for this whole team, right? I think that there's a lot of probably, I'm sure, among OU fans, optimism that this could be a really good year. But I think even the biggest OU fan would be like, I don't think they thought that they could go undefeated and win a national title. All of a sudden, Oklahoma's in those conversations. So how do they handle that, especially with the schedule, let's be honest, that Oklahoma should win out?
Yeah, Oklahoma's a 19-point favorite going into Saturday, but that has been a big talking point throughout the week, just a couple days into Central Florida week. But no distractions in Norman. Here's Brent Venables as well as Dylan Gabriel and a couple other players talking about that on Monday and then obviously today on Tuesday.
I don't know that distractions have always been there for young people. So the challenge has been there really since the beginning of time. You're on a college campus, So those are there. To me, every year is different. Depends on your focus and your maturity of your football team and whether or not they can stay locked in and stay committed to doing the boring, methodical things that it takes to be successful. And my challenge to them is, our structure and our routine has got to be our compass, and it's got to be a sanctuary for them and how you get ready. They've got to buy into that, not get bored with that, and show up every day with the mindset of developing good habits. Habits don't establish themselves, in the most critical times and the most strenuous situations on a football field. You have to fall back on your habits and your fundamentals. And so I believe our guys they understand that, they believe that, they buy into that. And we've spent a lot of time at trying to nurture that and promote that as well.
I think it's been good for us just being able to stay present, and I say that because that's what we've been doing thus far, and being able to just be in the moment, take advantage of every opportunity. And as cliche as it sounds, it's, the routine and things like that people can get bored with. But just being dialed into it, preparing our butt off, and, coming to Saturday, being able to, let it loose. So just, I guess, the combination of all that will help us.
Yeah, like you said, there's going to be people patting you on the back, congratulating you. But we know what we got in this room, and we know our end goal, so we don't really get too caught up in all that. We just keep the main thing.
I think every team is ready to play OU when they come in, and UCF. I bet their goals are still in front of them. With the losses that they've had, they still have their goals ahead of them, and it's a challenge for every team. Coach Schaefer just said in one of the meetings, talking about expectations for the season and finishing the season, right? Our team is 6-0 right now. A team that's 0-6, after 12 games, both teams could be 6-6. It's just a matter of changing your perspective, changing your practice habits, changing those things. So we respect them regardless of their record. Any team can come out and beat us if we don't come prepared to play. So we've got to focus on our team goals, focus on our practice habits, and go out there and dominate.
George, is there any concern going into this week, coming out of a bye week? You're obviously having to replace Andrell Anthony. Just in terms offensively, we'll get to the defense here in a second on the back end of this. Is there any concern as far as coming out of the gates a little bit slower?
Definitely. I think that when you talk about having to replace a guy that has been the go-to target for Dillon Gabriel, who is going to step into that role? We talked about the third downs and that statistic that you threw out there last week in one of the shows, Eddie. Who is going to be that third down guy? Now, it might take a couple drives, right? I think eventually they'll find their groove, and I'm sure Oklahoma's had 2 weeks to prepare. They're going to have a good game plan, right. I'm sure. But yeah, I think it always takes a moment to dust the rust off, or whatever the saying is. But and UCF's going to come in. They're coming off a bye week as well, I believe, and they're also coming off a pretty poor performance against Kansas. They're going to want to play well. Gus Malzahn's going to have them ready to go. They get their quarterback back in Plumlee. I think that this is a group that I think they know, though, Eddie, like coming into this, like Ethan was saying, they're going to get everyone's best shot the rest of the way. They always do at Oklahoma. But I think it wouldn't shock me if Oklahoma comes out a little bit slow offensively.
Should be interesting. Oklahoma will be without guard McKade Mettauer on Saturday. He got hurt in the Texas game, and it was great news regarding his prognosis. With I think a lot of people, when he went down, a lot of people thought that he would be out for the season, myself included. It sounds like just a sprained ankle, and he was in a boot a week ago during the bye week. I didn't see him out there yesterday at practice, but it does seem like the guard situation is going to become a little bit more clear going into Saturday. Here is Brent Venables talking on that situation, as well as Caleb Schaefer. We'll have more on him here in a second.
It's the same as what it was before. And, Caden came in, and we got Schaefer, we got Bird, we got Troy Everett. Those are kind of our guys, and you'll see all of them. Yeah. Well, I want to brag on all several of our guys that transferred in that came from different cultures, that we know college football has become more and more transactional, how the rules are set up, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you agree or you don't agree. And so there's, for us, as we really work hard at trying to protect a culture in our locker room and the things that we're trying to establish and build, finding the right people was critical. And we've had several guys that have come in as transfers and immediately have made an impact, maybe start from not day one, but have earned starting positions quickly. And then we've had a handful that have been, valuable backups, as well as amazing teammates and leaders, and just plugged right in. And despite whatever role they have, they might have given up a starting position somewhere, but they've come here, they have a role, they value it, they show up every day, and they bring value, they bring out the best in people, they show genuine gratitude and thankfulness and an appreciation for their opportunity and their teammates, and it makes a world of difference. And that's really how we've built this football team, and Caleb is a fantastic example of that. His perspective is always spot on, and he has amazing perspective. He's thankful for everything, and It starts with probably when he leaves his apartment in the morning, he's got a thankfulness to him. And that transcends to every other part of his life, and certainly as a teammate. So whenever he's gotten the opportunity to get in the game, he's got in the game. He's done very well. And he's earned more of an opportunity and plays on the games. He plays really well. Coach Biedenbote, if he was up here, true serum, he says, something he kind of pisses me off at practice, but he gets in them games and he can play. And I think it goes back to his experience, and he was well coached at Miami of Ohio. Those teams in that conference, man, they know what they're doing. And so he came in here with a lot of a good foundation from a playing standpoint, and has done really well. Really proud of Caleb.
Let's play a little get to know Caleb Schaefer. Who is he? I think that there's a lot of people that probably look up and they go, okay, I see him. He's 6'5", 344 pounds, but who is number 53? Played in 41 games in Miami, Ohio, started 35 of those, George. And, I think that Oklahoma goes into Saturday. I think you tweeted it during Brent's press conference on Tuesday. Probably slide him in as the starting right guard for Oklahoma for now and for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, the way that Brent talks about him, I don't see how it's not him come Saturday and for however long. And we'll see how he plays. Now, like you said, he's the most experienced guy. I think that's probably the reason he has the leg up there. I mean, he competed also for that starting left guard spot back in fall camp and had a really good fall camp. Just fell victim to, a Savion Byrd who's, really come on and been a talented guy, and now he's hurt, and Caden Green slides in. And so he's a guy that I think has primarily played right guard at Miami, Ohio. Like you said, 41 games of experience, and yeah, it's in the MAC, but like Brent said too, that's a tough conference, and football's football, right? And so I think he can come in. He's got plenty of size. I mean, you mentioned it, 340. I think he's the biggest player on the team. So it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe does that open up some things in the run game? I know UCF's run defense is one of the worst, I believe, in the country right now. So I wonder if they'll be able to run the ball more effectively. But yeah, I think he's a good example, though, like Brent said, of a transfer that's come in, accepted his role. Maybe it's not a starting role like he wanted, but now he earns his time. He is a captain this week, which I think says a lot about him from a leadership standpoint. So it's a fun story, and we'll see how he does come Saturday, and even moving forward if he continues to start.
It's amazing, and I think it's something that was well documented in terms of the final drive against Texas, take it over with the 117. And the one thing that struck me as kind of unbelievable was Andrew Aim after the game talking about, he looks to his right and he has Caleb Schaefer, a guy that didn't start the game with him, and he looks to his left and it's Caden Green, another guy, a true freshman at that hadn't started the game. So left guard, it's going to be kind of interesting. I know that Troy Everett, he's made a couple starts there, as well as Savion Byrd, who is healthy, didn't play in the Texas game, hasn't played in a while since the concussion against Tulsa, and then obviously the true freshman in Caden Green. Who do you think gets the start there?
I think it'll be Caden Green, just based on how he played on Saturday against Texas a couple weeks ago. But it wouldn't shock me if they put Troy Everett out there to start and then they bring in Caden Green. I don't know why they would do that, but I do think there is a chance it's a rotation on Saturday.
Sure.
Like, I think we're going to see several guys get some chances, and then maybe later in the game, whoever's playing the best is going to get to go. But I think you're going to see all four of those guys when you talk about Caden Green, Savion Byrd, Caleb Schaefer, and Troy Everett.
As you said, Saturday should offer Oklahoma offensively a great opportunity to run the ball. Kansas almost ran the ball for, I think, well over 400 yards against Central Florida. Let's just say that it is not a strength of them in stopping the run. As you mentioned, by the way, Caleb Schaefer, 1 of 5. Captains come Saturday. Dylan Gabriel, Shane Whiter, DeJohn Terry, and Reggie Pearson also captains. A guy that was a captain the last time Oklahoma went out on the field was Jacob Lacy. He comes up with one of the biggest plays, possibly Oklahoma season, there in the fourth quarter. That on the drive that Texas ends up kicking the go-ahead field goal with 1:17 left. But George, we talked to Jacob for the first time. I think since he had arrived at Oklahoma.
I've not spoken to him, so yeah.
Okay, on Monday, and it's really kind of become a fascinating, fun story. There's so much talk about the transfer portal and the guys that have contributed. Look no further than Jacob Lacy.
Unbelievable. I mean, listen to him yesterday talk about he thought he was going to maybe die, let alone play football again. So for him to not only get back on the field, but make an impact. I mean, he's been a guy that started several games now for Oklahoma, transferring from Notre Dame. He was the original guy. And if we think back, he was the first guy I believe they took in the portal. They took him all the way back, I want to say, in December of last year. So he's somebody that's come in and played really well. But you think of his story, how awesome it's been for him to get onto the field when he thought maybe he was never going to get to play again.
Here is Brent Venables, as well as Jacob Lacy, talking about his blood clot situation over the summer.
Yeah, I can. So, got out with spring ball, and I was working on my own. My legs started hurting. And, being a football player, I just thought as a little knot, something like that, go in the training room. Cool. And I was actually doing an internship with Chick-fil-A at the time. So we had flown around and things like that. Everything was fine. I just had a little pain in my leg. And once that was over, I flew back to Notre Dame to see one of my friends graduate. And on that plane ride, I started losing breath, things like that, and coughing up blood. And that's essentially when it started. That day when I landed, I went to the hospital at 3 a.m. by myself because my friends are graduating, so they dropped me off. Doc said I shouldn't be alive. He looked at me straight up and said, "I don't know how you're breathing." He said I'll probably never play football again. And I'm just sitting there by myself in that dark room, just thinking like, wow, I'm coming here to see some old friends and try to do the right thing. And something got taken away from me, but got through that. Everything worked out. And summer-wise, first month and a half, I'm just out here, encouraging the guys, watching, trying to stay positive. Working out at the apartment gym by myself because I'm not supposed to be, but keeping the lungs up and things like that. So each week it just kind of got more and more and more. And then camp came around. I also couldn't do camp just because I was on the back end of that, and that was hard. Seeing the guys out there balling, and I just couldn't, physically couldn't do it, whether I wanted to or not. So that was rough. But that Tuesday before the first game, I was cleared, and something that allowed me to be able to play so fast was, staying locked in, staying engaged, taking notes, doing everything I would do like I was practicing. And so that just allowed me to be where I'm at today. I'm thankful that I went through it. It allowed me to see the things that I need to work on and things that, I'm grateful for. So everything works out.
No, it's scary, really scary, and just thankful that under the circumstances that it was diagnosed and went through the right protocols to get him healthy. And fortunately for him and for us from a football standpoint, it was the best case scenario when it comes to blood clots. And I think the minimum amount of time, he was one of those percentages that fit into that category. And then between his own mindset and his family's, what he wanted to do, he was very aggressive and wanting to come back sooner rather than later. And then our medical team, they worked together and put together a game plan, and that was all based on him meeting his certain margins along the way and things of that nature. But to his credit, he stayed active in all the right ways on his own and did what he could between push-ups and things like that. I don't probably know the half of it, but he stayed fresh, and so he was at every walkthrough or practice and things of that nature to be around his teammates, and so I think all those things helped him from a transition standpoint, getting back into the flow of things, where it didn't take him as long as it potentially could have.
I wouldn't say it changed him as a player. It made me take a moment a little bit more each game to really appreciate where I'm at. But it also allowed me to know I can, go as hard as I possibly can each play. Because at the end of the day, that rarely could be your last play. Like I did not know, it didn't cross my mind that I'd get a blood clot at 23 years old or anything like that. That didn't even occur to me. That's why I thought it was a little short of breath. I thought I had to work out. I was actually running with Drake. When I first started, I was running with Drake Stoops out here conditioning, and I couldn't breathe, and I was like, oh, I'm out of shape. I'm out of shape. So that caused, some other problems because I went so hard through a blood clot. But at the end of the day, it just shows that, no matter what happens, like, it's all going to work towards the good. It changes everything. I think college football players sometimes might take for granted what they get with all the glim and the glam and, things like that. But just having the game almost taken away from you in a sense that you can't control, it makes you appreciate, the hard practices, the hard lifts, the days where you're here for 12 hours a day just because you can't do it. And if you are here doing it, you're not a part of it. So it was really made me appreciate the little things, especially, during that time of the summer when I couldn't, get in there with the guys and grind it out. So that's what I would say.
Truly incredible story there with Jacob Lacy. And, obviously it's a success story as things currently stand with Oklahoma and the defensive line, and they're going to have their hands full coming up this weekend. Pulmonary embolism was the correct term there on what happened to him, and truly a scary, as you said, it's a scary situation. I mean, he could have literally died while up in South Bend just visiting some of his friends for graduation. So really good news there in terms of his health, and then, most obviously getting back onto the field. It's one of those things, too, that I think back to what you talked about, I think on the Eskridge Lexus postgame show coming out of the Texas game, the Cotton Bowl, and your dad walking out with Jacob Lacy's father, and just, kind of how overcome he was with joy, not only in being able to see his kid play, but he's playing at a very high level, and those guys are going to have their hands full come Saturday with a Central Florida offensive line, extremely experienced, and I think that, obviously you look at the numbers, number 3 in the country in rushing.
Yeah, and I know that Bob Prisbillo will have a good story on Jacob Lacy later this week on Soonerscoop.com, so make sure you check that out. But, yeah, Jacob and the rest of this OU defensive line, which has been really good against the run this year, I think the stats were something like, only giving up about 3 yards per carry this season versus, I think, 4.5. A year ago, I think 113 yards per game on the ground, somewhere around there. So some vast improvement from a year ago, and it's largely because this defensive line is playing really good football. Whether it's Jacob Lacy in the middle, DJ Terry is really starting to come on. I think Isaiah Coe has had a really solid year. Jordan Kelly, you know what you're going to get from those guys. And then you talk about guys on the edge, and I know we want to talk about Ethan Downs. I mean, he's a guy that you and I have talked about it, Eddie, either on here or podcasts, wherever. Guy that was somebody that was, got a lot of criticism last year. This year, he's been arguably their best defensive end, maybe one of their best defensive players this year, leads the team in sacks, 3.5 sacks this year. So he's playing really well.
What's been the difference for Ethan Downs? Brent Venables talked about that on Tuesday, as well as Ethan himself talking about it on Monday night after practice.
Maybe last year it was paralysis by analysis, just overthinking things and just not turning it loose. Maybe playing with undisciplined eyes and pad level that goes along with that. And so just not trusting. Things weren't second nature yet. And so it's exactly opposite of that now. And he still has tremendous upside. To me, he's still not anywhere close to what he can be. And that's really a reflection of really where I feel like our whole team is as good as things have been up to this point in time, with several scars and warts along the way. We're not anywhere close to being the team that I believe that we can be. And Ethan is one of those guys, but he's playing pretty good. And, had an excellent outing. And it's a lot of little things. It's not necessarily team related to the opponent. It was really some of just football, understanding football, run, play action, our scheme within, what we want to do. And, but he's coming on and is playing a little more free, as opposed to having a burden of just, overthinking things that sometimes, young players play with.
I've got to be faster on my reactions, reading plays, but not being not watching the game, not in the stands, as we say, but being in the game, reading my keys fast and playing faster, no hesitation. There's so many plays left out there that I feel like I'm missing. Not selfishly, I've got to fit my gaps so my other guys can make plays too, play my 111th. But I feel like I'm missing some plays when I'm not reacting fast enough, when I'm hesitating, thinking too much. Coaches have prepared me well. I've practiced it, and 5 days of practice, go. That's my goal.
It's all out there for Oklahoma with 6 games left in the regular season, 3 home games, 3 away games, George. And it was something that was actually in the game notebook coming up this weekend was just the defensive turnaround. I know it's been documented quite well here over the course of the first 6 weeks of the season, but you start looking at these numbers, George, and like the third down percentage really jumps out at me. A year ago it was 40.9%. They're down to 28.9%. You look at the turnovers. I mean, what was there anything that really truly stuck out to you in terms of everything that was put out there?
The stop rate. I think it's our good friend Max Olson over at The Athletic does a good job with the stop rate, but I think Oklahoma ranks 7th in stop rate this year, which basically means they're getting off the field, whether it's turning the ball over, which I think they're first in the country in turnover margin this year.
Plus 1.8 turnover margin, and yes, that does lead the country.
Crazy to think about that.
It really is crazy in terms of when we started this thing at the beginning of August. You're talking about a defense that was obviously in the triple digits, 111, in between 111 and 120 for just about every defensive statistic that you could find. And now you look up and you're talking about, is this like a top 15 defense? Is this a top 20 defense? Could they end up being a top 10 defense? And then you go back to what we talked about with Teddy Lehman a week ago during the bye week, which you can watch our interview with him from the Soonerscoop.com studios with the great Teddy Lehman right here on our Soonerscoop YouTube channel. If I could get through that for a second, don't judge me. But if you talk to him and then you hear from Brent as well, they're so much better. Like, this should be the ground floor for what they're trying to build in Norman.
Which is crazy because you talk about the defensive leap they've taken in year 2 under Brent, and it's been remarkable. And you think, how could it be even better? But you look, Eddie, statistically, what Brent was able to do at Clemson his first 3 years. His first year, it was an okay defense. They jumped up to top 50 nationally across the board statistically, kind of like Oklahoma is right now. And then in year 3, all of a sudden you're talking about a top 10 defense in almost every category. And you're looking at sort of the same thing going on with Oklahoma, maybe even better in terms of where they're at right now. Now we'll see what it looks like at the end of the season. They still got some, high-powered offenses to go through. I think UCF is going to give them some problems. They're able to run the football, like we said. John Reese Plumlee, the quarterback, is back. He can move with his legs. Then you face a Kansas team that can run the football. We'll see if Jalen Daniels plays in that game. Oklahoma State is starting to get things turned around there. You got TCU with a new quarterback. At the end of the season, it'll be interesting to see them. West Virginia has kind of a funky offense. BYU. So we'll see what it looks like at the end of the year. But it's undoubtedly clear that Oklahoma has taken a huge leap defensively. And I think it's even bigger than we all thought they would be better this year on that side of the ball. But it's been pretty impressive how much better they've been.
No doubt about it. For Oklahoma to finish this season 12-0, for them to get through these next 6 games unblemished and get back to Arlington and, possibly a matchup with Texas on the other side of that, do they just need to do what they've done for the first 6 games? Is it a continuation truly, or is it they need to be better in every facet?
I think they need to get better in a few areas. I think they still need to be able to run the football better, because you're going to get in some tight games where you're going to want to chew some clock and just go on one of those, 6-minute, 7-minute drives where you're just running the football. That needs to get better. Special teams is going to end up costing you a game if you don't get that fixed, so that needs to get better. But largely, yeah, Eddie, I think it is a continuation of just continuing to do what you do, stay focused, and then also, obviously, stay healthy.
Sure.
You can't lose a whole lot more guys. You lose a guy in Andrew Anthony. I think they can overcome that, but you don't want to lose a Farouk or a Drake Stoops or some of these other guys. You don't want to lose any more offensive linemen, right? That's been kind of a rotation up there. Defensively, it sounds like they're starting to get a little bit more healthy at corner, but you don't want to lose any guys there. So that's another concern, is like you don't want to lose somebody that's really important to this group due to health. And that's something that's not really in your control, right? But I think that might be the biggest thing for them right now, is just continue to stay healthy.
Just in terms of injury front situation for Oklahoma going into the Central Florida game, McKade Mettauer, that's about it.
I think so.
Obviously, Justin Harrington's going to be out. He's out for the season. But outside of that, it seems all pretty positive. You asked about the cornerback position today. Kenai Walker should be back. Makari Vickers should be back. Josiah Wagner should be back. That is a position unit, if there was any on the team that probably needed the bye week at this point of the season, it was Jay Valai's group.
Yeah.
The situation that Brent talked about on on Tuesday rather, with Javonte Barnes, still just it's completely
puzzling
weird to me.
It's
Yes.
puzzling. Yeah. I don't know. Like, if
was-
we should expect him to play the rest of the year. To
Yeah.
be honest, like
It-
it sounds like they want him to, but I don't know.
And it was just weird how it was termed. It was asked if he was going to be part of the plans moving forward here in the back end of the schedule. And it was possibly,
We're
period. We're hopeful, period.
Yeah. So who knows?
Make of that what you will. But that's about it. We'll be back out there on Tuesday for our Tuesday evening for post-practice sessions with the Oklahoma players. And then we'll be back right here on Thursday for a Central Florida preview. There was plenty said about Central Florida here over the last couple days, but we like to package all that into the opponent preview. So for George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich from the Soonerscoop.com studios. We'll talk to you next time.